crafty people! This year I set myself the goal to sew 100 things throughout the course of the year, and so today I'm updating you with everything that I sewed from April to June. If you are new to my channel, then you will have missed the first quarter video of everything I sewed from January to March, so I will have that link down below if you want to see some of the projects that I made for that first quarter. But this quarter that I'm sharing with you today are all of my autumn to winter type projects, because it is currently now winter here in Australia and it's very, very cold outside. So today I'm going to be showing you all of those autumn and winter projects that I've made the past 3 months, including what I'm wearing here. So I'm going to start you back in April with the first project that I made in April. We're going to go through these in chronological order, and the first project was this shirt here that I made for myself to wear for Easter. On Easter Saturday, the kids were all picking out the clothes they wanted to wear to church for Easter Sunday, and I realized they all had this sort of pastel thing going on, and I didn't have anything in those pastel colors. So then on Easter Saturday night, I found this fabric in my stash and whipped myself up this shirt just in one night. I shared the process of making this shirt on Instagram, so you may have seen it in my stories over there of the chaotic sewing of this that night before Easter. It is actually a shirt that I made using the Rosary Apparel pansy pattern, which is a dress pattern which I adapted because I like the bodice fit of that, and I adapted it into this shirt pattern. So that was the first thing that I sewed for April, was this shirt. The next thing I made in April were these Crows jumpers for the boys. The Adelaide Crows is our footy team, so these jumpers are supporting our footy team, and I gave Elijah his first before we went to go and watch a Crows game at Adelaide Oval. It was meant to be for his birthday, but I gave it a little bit early so he had it in time to go and watch that game. After I made that one for Elijah, I then made one for Ruben using the scrap fabrics and the sleeves. If you watch the video, which I'll link down below, you'll understand the sleeve situation and why I had to adjust the sleeves, which created the beginning of Ruben's jumper. These jumpers are nice and cozy, and I shared the making process of the one Elijah's wearing in a full video, which I'll link below, and I also made a YouTube short about making Ruben's jumper as well. So thanks boys for showing us your jumpers. So, is that all I know? So it was just that shirt for myself and the 2 jumpers for the boys for April. So only 3 things that I made in April, which when you consider I'm trying to get to 100 by the end of the year, was not a very good start. But that's okay, because May and June certainly made up for it. So let me show you what we made in May. At the beginning of May, I went along to a craft camp, which was the first time I had ever done that, and I had a lot of fun doing that, getting to go away for the weekend where you don't have any responsibilities, you're just there to do crafts and eat good food that you didn't have to cook. It was amazing. I'll definitely be going back again. I really did enjoy it. I took 2 projects with me over to craft camp that I was working on. The first was this jumper here, which you wouldn't be able to tell it's a jumper. It's a granny square jumper that I'm making. So at the moment I have all of my granny squares all made and the triangles all made. I just need to piece it together. So that is coming along nicely. I started that as my first project in May, and I'm still working on it because it's one of those, just pick it up every now and then, especially if I'm watching TV. It's a good project for that sort of a thing. I did share a Q&A video a few videos back, and I was crocheting those granny squares at that time as well. So you can see me crocheting that if you want to, if you go back to watch that Q&A video if you're interested. And the other project that I brought along to craft camp was I brought this black jumper that I bought from the shops, and I was doing some embroidery on it. I'm writing the word mum on it, M-U-M, and I started to work on the U being the central letter so that you can then put the other letters either side evenly spaced. And this is as far as I got. I got this far on craft camp at the beginning of May, and I haven't picked it up since then. I've had other projects that have taken priority, but I think this is going to look really cute once it's done. I'll link the pattern that I used for these floral embroidered letters. It's been really good to use. It comes with a YouTube video tutorial, which is good because I am new to embroidery. So I really needed the YouTube tutorial so I know how to do each of the different stitches. So they were the 2 projects that I brought along to craft camp. And the next priority once I came back from craft camp was that I had a few projects that I had to do for a friend of ours in preparation for their wedding. Our good friends Matt and Michelle got married just last weekend, just in July, so congratulations to you. We were very excited to be at your wedding. And back in May, they had asked me to do a few sewing projects for their wedding as well. Matt is from a Scottish background, so he was going to wear his family kilt for the wedding, and he had some of his family tartan like this that he asked for me to make some pocket squares and bow ties for the wedding. It felt like a big responsibility to be cutting into their precious family tartan, and I had it sitting around for a couple of weeks before I was brave enough to cut into it, because it just felt like, yeah, a big responsibility to be cutting this precious family tartan that had come over from Scotland with them. But once I finally plucked up the courage to do it, I made 5 pocket squares. So I have this one here. I made them quite small because we made them normal size, which is about 30 centimeter squares. But because the tartan is quite thick, they were very, very bulky in the boys' suit pockets. So instead we sized it down to be a very small pocket square like this. Pocket squares are so easy to make. They're just a square of fabric that you hem the whole way around, so it was very easy to make. And then we were just very specific about which color part of the tartan was on each square, so that they were all very uniform, so that when they were folded up they all looked the same. So this here is my husband Lane's pocket square, because he was one of the groomsmen in the wedding, but I made 5 of these, and I also made 2 little kid bow ties out of the same tartan. I obviously don't have the bow ties here with me right now because I gave them to the boys and they wore them to the wedding, and I obviously don't need them back, but it was a really cute way for the 2 little boys to match what their stepdad was wearing with his wonderful family kilt in the wedding. So in total for May, I made the 2 jumpers, or at least started them. They're not quite done yet, but we're going to count it. The 2 jumpers, 5 pocket squares, and the 2 bow ties, which brings me to a total of 9 things that I sewed in May. So let's move on now to June. The first thing that I sewed for June was this summer skirt here, even though it is not summer here, but I was getting a lot of questions from people about summer clothing or summer patterns to recommend or summer fabrics. So I thought it was time for me to make a summer skirt, even though it's winter here. I made this skirt here. It's a circle skirt, a tiered circle skirt, and I shared this in a YouTube short, which I'll link down below. I really love how flowy and twirly this is, and of course it has pockets. I still haven't hemmed it though, because it's not even summery weather, so I'm not going to wear it for a while. So that was not really a priority, but I'll get around to hemming it soon, I'm sure. The next thing I made in June was a present for my niece Charlotte. She turned 1 and I made her a little birthday present, which was I bought a doll and I made a dress for the doll, as well as a matching dress for Charlotte to wear. And then I also made a doll blanket and doll pillow to go along with it. Oh, and I also made some little hair bows for Charlotte as well. Because Charlotte is only turning 1, I wanted to have a small enough doll that she could carry it around without it being too heavy. But that meant that I didn't actually have a doll clothes pattern that fit this smaller doll, because all the dolls that we have at home are actually a bit larger. So I had to rework my doll dress pattern and adjust it a few times, and it took a little bit of fiddling with before the dress pattern for that doll actually worked. And because of that, I did not film the process of making that doll dress, just because I was working with the pattern and adapting it to the right size. I will eventually, I think, maybe hopefully one day, be able to share with you a doll dress pattern. It just might need to be of the doll size that we have at home, rather than this mini doll that I made for Charlotte. The dress that I made for Charlotte is made using the wattle pattern by Peony Patterns, which I'll link down below. I'm actually going to be sharing a video of the whole process of making a dress from that wattle pattern in the future. It won't be the dress that I made for Charlotte. I'm making a different one for my girls using the same pattern. So if you'd like to see how to make a dress using that same pattern, you can subscribe and see that video in the future. The doll pillow and doll blanket that I made for Charlotte, I am also sharing a YouTube video about in the future. I have already filmed that. I filmed the process when I was making the ones that I made there for Charlotte. And I've also previously made quite a few that we have here at home of those same doll blankets and pillows. So I will be sharing that in 2 videos time here on this channel. So once I finished making Charlotte's present, I had some spare fabric that I used to make the dress for the doll and for Charlotte. And that is what created this shirt that I'm wearing here. So this shirt here is made from the scrap fabrics, or the spare fabric from it. I had to piece it together a bit because I only had 1 panel big enough to make the front of the shirt. And then the back I've had to sew together at the waist and piece together a bit because I didn't have enough fabric left over to cut the back out all in one piece. So instead I cut it out of different patches and then just sewed it all together. I made this shirt to wear to Michelle's hen's party, and I've worn it a few times since then as well. So I'm seeing that this is going to be a go-to shirt for me over the colder months. The pattern that I used to make this shirt here is also the same pattern that I used to make a formal Christmas dress that I wore last year. And I also have a short sleeve, more casual style version of this same pattern that I've made as well. So I do have some video footage of making each of these pieces from that same pattern, and I'll be putting those together in a video all about how you can take one pattern and adapt it to make it more casual or more formal. So that video will be coming out in quite a while. It's kind of down the pipeline a bit, but if you do want to see it, I'll eventually get around to it. Our next June project was this yellow skirt here that Isabel's wearing that she needed to wear for school. She came home from school on the Thursday and told me that she wanted to wear a yellow skirt to school the next day on Friday. So that night I made you a yellow skirt, didn't I? All in one night. So the process of making this was a little haphazard as I just used whatever I could find around the house that was yellow so that I could make the skirt ready for the next day. I'm sharing the making of this skirt as a YouTube short. You'll want to subscribe to see that next week. This here is a full circle skirt, so it looks really beautiful when she's twirling around. Underneath the top layer, there's also a layer of tulle with a decorative border around it, so it gives it that kind of puffy, voluminous tutu kind of effect. So this skirt was a very last minute, unplanned project for June, but it turned out pretty well, so we're going to let you go and I'm going to have Alice in next. And the very last thing that I made for June was this jumper here for Alice. Alice had seen this fabric here at Spotlight a couple of times and you really loved it, didn't you? And she was very excited to have a jumper made out of it for herself. I used the same pattern as when I made the boys' Crows jumpers, except this time I didn't use ribbing for the cuffs because I couldn't find a close enough colour match. Alice has always loved anything with daisies on it, and her favourite colour is purple, so we knew that this fabric was going to be perfect to make something for her birthday. So you're 4 now, aren't you, big girl? Yeah. So this daisy jumper here was the last project that I made for June. So thank you, Alice, for joining us. So altogether, adding all of the things that I made from January all the way up until June, I have made 40 items so far this year, which means that I'm not quite halfway. I should have aimed for 50 at this point to be halfway through the year and halfway through my 100 items, but I'm still plodding along and I have some momentum now. The past 2 months, I've actually made quite a few things. 9 things in a month is a really good month. So I'm still hopeful that we can get to 100 things by the end of the year. If you want to know if I can get to 100, don't forget to subscribe to this channel to come back and see next quarter how many things I made as well, and also to see all my tutorials in between now and then. If any of the sewing projects that I've shared today sound interesting to you, I'll link as many as I can in the description box down below so you can watch one of those next. If you'd like to see what I'm up to during the week, or you'd like to not miss out on some of the projects that I don't share here on YouTube but I do share over on Instagram, I'd love for you to follow me over there at mymum.marie. So thank you for making it all the way to the end of this video, and until next time, go get creative and I'll see you later.